Trade Secretary Gregory Domingo is one of the key players in the President's economic team that has played a significant role in the Philippines' rise as one of Asia's top emerging economies in recent years. And tonight we are joined on the phone by Mr. Forbes, Senior Advisor of the American Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines, to share with us his views on the resignation of Secretary Domingo. Good evening, sir, and welcome to NewsLife.
Good evening, Robert. It's nice to be back on NewsLife.
So you've worked very closely with Secretary Domingo for the past 5 years. Now, how would you describe his partnership with the private sector?
Well, it's extremely close, both the domestic and the foreign, and it's more than 5 years. Please recall that over a decade ago, he headed the DOI for 3 years.
Now, Secretary Domingo is the chairman of the National Competitiveness Council. Now, did the partnership of government and the private sector boost the country's competitiveness ranking?
That's the only way to boost it. You can't have them working at cross purposes. The public sector has to understand the concerns of the private sector, try to not just listen to them, but to implement and act upon them as well. And that will improve the investment climate that leads to more jobs and growth.
Now, has the climate for investments improved in terms of, has the red tape lessened? Have you seen improvements on this?
I think the main improvement has been less corruption. It's certainly not been eradicated, and it could return, but that's widely thought, at least in the higher reaches of the current government. The problem that replace that is infrastructure. I think there have been some efforts to reduce red tape, but they could be much more ambitious. They could follow the example of President Widodo, who just is wiping out almost 100 regulations, or even Australia every year has their parliament a day in which they eliminate a lot of unnecessary and old laws. And in fact, that very idea is being studied inside the NCC, but it's probably too late to implement. It would be a very, very good idea in the Philippines to get rid of all unnecessary, to have sunset provisions and laws, and even regulatory impact assessments, which has been proposed in the Senate.
In the past 5 years, have you seen any improvement in terms of more foreign investments coming in here in the Philippines in terms of all these reforms in the business environment?
Well, I think, as we all know, the Philippines has gotten very little foreign investment historically. If you look at the numbers for the past several decades, it's about $1 billion a year, right through a series of presidents. And part of that was because of political instability. Part of that is because business costs, labor costs, were somewhat higher than competing countries as the region opened up. But up until 2014, compared to 2010, there's a 500% increase in FDI, up to $6.2 billion. That's a big increase. Now, what's a bit worrisome is this year that number has gone down by 40%, and that's a little bit against the trend not only here in the Philippines of going up, but also in Indonesia, in Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia. The figures for the first half of the year have been going up. So I think part of that may be because of the problems, the impact of the port congestion, and now the traffic congestion and airport congestion. I think Manila is starting to get a negative reputation for having infrastructure efficiency. But that can be rectified, I hope.
Now, having worked closely with Secretary Domingo for the past 5 years, did you see this coming, this news of his resignation, and how would this now affect the business environment right now?
Well, I must admit, I think it took the foreign business community as a bit of a surprise. But when you reflect upon it, the president or a senator may have to serve for a 6-year term. But when you come in from the private sector, Secretary Domingo did, a man who's had a strong career in banking, running industrial estates and a variety of companies, very, very familiar with business. You're making a sacrifice. Philippines does not pay its senior public sector officials anywhere near what the deserve the amount of work that they put in. So they're making a sacrifice when they leave the private sector, or if they leave academics, anything, it's not easy to work in government. It's complicated and legislation, got hearings going on, you have to work through 2 chambers of commerce, you have large bureaucratic coordinating issues to do. So it's not, and we get the last year of an administration, that's about the time people start to move on to do other things. I can only recall about 6 secretaries in this administration out of the 22 that have left. One moved to the palace, another moved from several departments. They move around a little bit. Tourism went out, communications went out. I find that really a remarkably low number. And with elections coming up, a few more will probably resign early, some to run for office, and others just to go back to the private sector. I think that's normal, and I don't think, to answer your last part of your question, Secretary Domingo's resignation is going to affect things, and it's not clear exactly when it will be effective.
Now, sir, so far, what have you seen in terms of achievements done by Secretary Domingo in terms of reforms in the business environment here in the Philippines?
Well, he's been trying to simplify the business registration process and working closely with the International Finance Corporation, the World Bank, the National Competitiveness Council. There have been almost 40 roadmaps for different sectors developed in the last 4 years. A great amount of work has gone into that. He's been a champion of some legislative reforms, such as the competition policy bill, and he's defended the necessity of fiscal incentives to incentivize investment. He is the chairman, of the Philippine Export Zone Authority, which has over 3,000 locators and 1 million employees, and has been very fast-growing in investment in recent years. I can mention other things, too, but I'll wait for your next question.
Okay, on that note, thank you very much. We don't have much time, so thank you very much for joining us here tonight on NewsLive. That was Mr. John Forbes, Senior Advisor of the American Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, sir.
Okay, it's a pleasure. Thank you.